Hello. How's it going? Happy Tuesday. Here we are about to talk with Amanda. Hi, I see Amanda. And we are going to talk about her newest book. Today's her launch day, which is huge. I hope everyone can see and hear me. Hi, Vintage Books and Wine. Let's see.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm great.
I'm
How are you?
great. I'm great. I'm so excited to be chatting today.
I'm so excited. It's like today is surreal. It's release day, and I'm so glad that I have something planned fun for today. So this really means a lot. And I'm so flattered that you chose my book for your June book club.
Oh my gosh, of course. I'm so excited, and I want to say what an honor it is to be chatting with you on launch day because I know that it takes so much work to get where you are, and then all of the push, and I'm sure all of the press and interviews and all the things you have to do on launch day to, get the word out there and talk. And so I feel very honored to sit across from you or Zoom across from you or whatever this we want to call the Zoom, living. So thank you so much. This is amazing.
Thank you. And I hope that I'm like semi-coherent because I just have a million emotions today and like so much excitement. So
well, good.
I'll do my best.
No, just let it all flow. That's the point, is that I think and we'll get into Starlings as well, but also one of the things I love about YA and books and reading is that it's not something that is over there, or it's not too erudite. It's not something that we have to talk about all the archetypes and the commas and the edits. It's about picking up a book, reading a great story, and just enjoying that moment and getting lost in characters. So that's why I think it's great to just be off the cuff and talk about reading and YA and Starlings and all the great things. So be you.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
So first of all, because I know it is launch day, so we don't want to give away too many spoilers or any spoilers. So maybe you could just give a quick synopsis or, Reader's Digest of Starlings.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a kind of elevator pitch that I have. So it's a young adult novel. It's about a 17-year-old girl named Kit Starling, and her father has recently passed away. And when he was alive, he was very secretive about his past, never spoke about it, told her that his whole family was dead. So after he passes away, she's stunned to receive a letter from her paternal grandmother, Agatha Starling. And she gets an invitation to visit her father's hometown, Rosemont.
Mm-hmm.
So Kit and her mother travel there, and Rosemont is like kind of picture perfect. It's a really sweet little charming town, and everyone is super welcoming and very friendly. But some unsettling things start to happen, and then some really unsettling things start to happen. And the longer Kit's there, the more she starts to wonder, like, maybe there's a really good reason her father kept this place and these people from her.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, perfect. And I loved, there's so much more to the story. So everyone needs to go and pick up their book. And I first want to get started with YA. And I'm curious, I love chatting with authors of what genre and why. And I'm curious why YA for you.
So I actually write adult too.
Yes.
And I
Sorry.
Yeah, and I write YA, but this story, Kit's voice was so real to me.
Mm-hmm.
Once I decided it was going to be a contemporary YA. And it initially started as a historical, and it was like there was something missing that I couldn't put my finger on. And so I started making it contemporary. Kit's voice just jumped off the page for me. And she's actually my first young adult in a contemporary story. So my first modern teenager that I've written. And I had such a, she's so real to me. She's so authentic. She's really flawed, like every human, right? And she's makes mistakes, and she's too trusting. And there's just something I love about writing YA in general, that I feel like it's so easy to connect with that part of my younger self. And also, I loved reading my whole life and growing up reading. And if my book can mean something to a teen, a child, whatever, that would be a huge honor for me. So I just want, I just hope people love the book, and I hope that it resonates, and I hope teenagers love it. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to do this and to share more YA stories in future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is so enjoyable and it's so fun. And I felt like it was a page turner. And I mean, I inhaled it in a day. Like it was, I couldn't put it down because there was no great point where I was like, I can just leave this alone for now. It'll be fine. Like I had to finish it. It was just such a suspenseful, fun story. Um, what was the process like for you from start to finish, really? What was that? What was your research like? How did you approach the story and the characters?
Yeah, so I actually, the very, very beginning, like the first seed of starlings, I was driving on this country road and I saw this kind of like little wooded meadow with this crude wooden fence. And I got this flash of a scene of a girl running through the woods, like skirts hiked up in her hands, and she was crying. And I knew she was really scared, but I didn't know what she was scared of. So I started writing it, and like I said, that was a historical version, and I got, like 30,000 words into it, and I felt like something died in the story, like it just wasn't working. So I came back to it like in December of 2019, and that's when I made it contemporary, and that's when Kit really came alive, and the town came alive. It was almost like its own character for me. So I mean, I'm not a huge researcher as far as like, I know historical fiction writers research a ton, right? I had very specific things I had to research. Some of them were disturbing, as some fiction writers talk about, like how long will blood stain wood? How many centuries will that, things like that. And of course, I'm so inspired by so many books and movies and things like that. And I just feel like there's so many little Easter eggs of things that I've loved over the years in this story. But the research itself, like I didn't have to do a ton of like making sure things were historically accurate. It was more like just bits and pieces.
Sure. Well, I mean, even down to like the town. Like I think everyone approaches the craft so differently. So, like, did you go and travel somewhere, or you just had this in your mind, or writing from a younger perspective of, were there ways in which that you approached that or entered into those characters, or you just had it in your mind the whole time, or?
I kind of had the idea, the town for me is like, there's something so familiar about
Mhm.
Rosemont. Like, I think so many of us know little towns like that across, the United States, where it's just kind of old fashioned in feel, and there's something very like Midwestern friendly about it. But it also, as far as like getting into the characters, I think I just really take on, and sometimes this is maybe not as healthy as it should be, but I feel like when I'm writing them, I'm really immersing myself in what they're feeling. And so when Kit was grieving, I felt like I was grieving with her. When she was scared, I felt like I was scared with her.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I definitely had to research certain things like, how could the roses not die? Like, I'm not a scientist. I had to get outside help for that. There were certain things like that. But as far as, taking on the story, it was like some of it just came from instinct, like what would fit well here, and then other things just developed over time. And the very, very first draft is so different than what it became, but like I feel like the bones of it are there. It's about this girl and sacrifice and how she pushes back against what's expected of her. And I feel like that heart of that stayed true the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you just talked about the book evolving
Mm-hmm.
and that process. I mean, I think often it's probably, similar with, watching a TV show and you think, oh, it just ends up, on the screen, or a book just ends up on the shelf. Clearly it takes years
Yeah.
to write, a great story. What is how, and you touched a bit upon it in an Instagram post just about even the rejection letters and such. What does it feel like sitting here knowing that you have this awesome story that's launching today? And, if you don't mind, just like sharing a little bit about that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, it's a little surreal just because when you like dream about something so long and work towards it, and then it happens. Like I remember when we sold the book, I was afraid to celebrate at first because I was like, this isn't
Yeah.
real. Like it's not really happening. But I mean, I started writing in like 2006, 2007. That's when I mean, I was a reader my whole life, but I didn't think I was going to be a writer. I did, you know, actually my first job, I wanted to be a ballerina when I was a little girl. So it just kind of happened, and I hungered for it for so long and had so many rejections and passes and from literary agents and then publishers and then, you know, by the time it happened, like I got my fabulous agent in September of 2022, and we sold the book a month later. Like it took so long to get to that point, so many years of rejections and ups and downs, and me thinking it was never going to happen. And I wrote a lot of books along the way, and learned hopefully with everyone. But like by the time it actually happened, it was almost just amazing how quickly and it felt like it was just meant to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, and here you are. This is amazing.
I know.
So I also read that you are a mom as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like for you and your process of sort of structuring your writing and momming and finding that balance?
Yeah, it's well, we have a small house, so that makes it a little more challenging in that I can't really like my office is in our dining room,
Yeah.
so I can't really escape. When I need to concentrate, headphones are my best friend, and I have some playlists that I love for all my books, so I crank that up and listen. But some days, I mean, it depends. Like right now, I'm on deadline actually for my second book, so it makes it a little more challenging. When I have like something I have to do. And so some mornings I'm getting up super early before the kids get up and finding some quiet. And I really despise getting up early, but it turns out I'm super productive in the morning. So like I resist it, but it works for me. And just taking advantage of those quiet moments, like when kids are at school or they're outside playing and I can just get words down. But I think part of it just comes with like giving myself a little bit of grace that I'm not going to write as much as I would have 20 years ago, maybe. Yeah, but it's going to get done. And I'm very, I'm just very like excited by the writing itself. So, I mean, there's definitely days where it's like, oh, I do not want to go sit at my computer right now. But when the good days are there, it's like I just can't wait to get going, and my kids see me working, and I think that's a great thing for them to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I also love the fact that, you know, the dining room table, and it's the same in our house, is multi-purpose. You know, it's the place where you feed and gather, and then the workspace, and you know, I read, you know, like I love that. And I think it's so important. We do it in our house too, and that the kids see your work ethic and juggling and all these things.
Yeah,
It's awesome. Um,
absolutely.
I'm also wondering, so getting up early, I also am not, I'm more of a night owl than an early bird. But I, like you, like I feel I get more work done in the morning. Um, when I when I can focus.
Yeah.
But do you like I've heard so many I love I'm so fascinated by um, you know, just I guess someone's day to day and especially a writer, how you approach, you know, that process in terms of like, do you sit down and you have a certain amount of words that you want to accomplish? Is it, I want to get to this arc in the story? I guess, what is your sort of focus or task you want to accomplish when you do that?
I think when I'm like drafting a news story, it's more about words, like word count. Like, oh, I'll be so happy if I get, 500 words. I never really set out to it. Like, if it happens, I'll be like, yes, I wrote this many words and I got this much in the story. But like right now, I'm revising a book. And so for me, if there's a tricky scene where I almost want to avoid it, or I'm like, ooh, this is really hard. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, if I know that it's troubling me, if I can just tackle that scene, I will be so happy. And so my goal really is to just push myself to get those things done, because I know the reason I'm avoiding them is because they scare me or they challenge me.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as I can get that done, like that's a good day's work for me. And, you know, as I inch closer to like deadline day, then I just try to pick up the pace a little and make sure that I'm not falling behind so I don't have to scramble last minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know all about scrambling last minute, especially with kids. Sorry, my dog just ran in the door.
Oh, no.
You also were talking about your deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit on what you're working on next?
Yeah, I can't say I can't say too much because it's not up for pre-order yet, and there's not that much about it. But it is another YA. It's coming out next summer, and it's called Six of Sorrow. It's got some very witchy vibes. It's about six best friends, so it's got kind of a different feel. Like Starlings is very much like Kit is alone a lot of the time, and this has kind of a different energy because it's these six teenage girls and they're playing off of each other a lot with their energy, and just it's been a different dynamic writing it, and I'm super excited, and I can't wait to talk more about that soon. In a few months I think we'll be able to share like cover and stuff like that.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
And so this is another YA.
Yes.
Do you enjoy one over the other? Are there more challenges with one versus the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pros cons either way. I think the story, like, there are some stories where I've written, I'm like, I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure what the best way would be to tell this story. And then you kind of, sometimes I've tried like a different chapter in each one and seen where it fits. Sometimes it's the characters that tell me, like, I don't think Starlings would have worked nearly as well as an adult. Like, I think Kit had to be a teenage girl and it had to be this dynamic with her family. And so it really just kind of depends on what the story needs. But I didn't think that I was gonna write YA until I started writing Starlings, like, and it was the contemporary version, and it just came like someone read a chapter, a friend of mine, and they were like, "This just feels so natural for you." And I was like, "Well, that's amazing because I loved reading YA. I just never knew that I could write it." So, I mean, I hope I did a great job, but
you did.
I can't see myself choosing one or the other. Like, I think I'll always write a little bit of adult, a little bit of YA, or hopefully lots of each.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
I hope you do a lot of each.
Sure.
You're such a talented storyteller.
Thank you.
No, thank you. What else was I going to ask you? Sorry.
Take your time. I'm here.
Perfect. Let's keep going. So I also read on the Goog, which you can give or take on Google, but I read that you were a fan of authors like R.L. Stine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. I grew up I love R.L. Stine and Christopher Pike.
Yeah, like Fear Street, Goose. Like, I loved all those when I was younger. I mean, still great. Like, I just got the Cheerleaders trilogy, whatever. Yeah. But I always like loved those kind of stories, and I read a lot of fairy tales when I was younger, and then I think I kind of lost my sense of who I was as a reader and a writer, like, until my mid or early 20s, and I think that's when Twilight and like Hunger Games came out. Like, that was the big YA, like, birth of YA fiction, because before that we didn't have a ton of stuff. And so I didn't even think about like writing anything like that until I read The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, who is like one of my all-time favorite books. So good. But I remember being like kind of creeped out, like getting goosebumps while I was reading it and thinking, oh my God, I remember this feeling. Like, I had this when I was younger reading those books. Could I write something like this? And then that was like where it kind of took off for my writing, and I'm just so glad that I picked that book up. But I think I always would have found my way back to the stories that I loved growing up. And I think that's one of the best things about getting older, is we kind of like re-embrace the things we loved as a child with no apologies, and just like, that's just who we are, you know?
Yeah.
For a minute.
No, I totally agree with you. I think especially embracing getting older, I think what, at least I tend to do is I take off the sort of layers of perfectionism and the need to like strive to be like this or put myself in a box, but really I was inspired by these things, or these things are my foundation, and it's embracing that. And I think ultimately it's going to make you happier and better at whatever craft you decide to pursue, in whatever capacity. It just makes, I don't know, I find that it makes me better. Like all the silly TV shows and movies that I loved when I was younger, and all like those great books, like I loved all of those fantasies like Myths of Avalon, and I loved Christopher Pike and B.C. Andrews, and all of R.L. Stein and all of those too. So and I think it's important to embrace that and find a niche for yourself in all of those things that you love. And I think that's what's so great about Starlings. It's a wonderful story, and it's, I think a lot of friends of mine, and talking about books and what we're reading, and it's always fun to say like, oh, I'm reading a YA book, and I think can be perplexing, but I think it's all about a story and finding a good story, and not that it's not juvenile, it's just a different sort of genre and with a great meat to it and great story. And I really also think with a lot of YA, there are also a lot of tones that Odette, sorry, I just saw my daughter, that adults can, feel and pick up on, that maybe, the kids don't pick up on as much, but it's great for everybody. The point is to pick up a book, support your authors that you love, and read.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm a big believer in, there's no such thing as guilty pleasures. There's no if you read it and it makes you happy, or it entertains you, or it makes you feel like, there's no judgment. I hear a lot of people be like, oh, don't, kids shouldn't be reading graphic novels, like the comic ones, because it's not really reading. I've heard that a lot.
Well, then don't come to mind.
Right. Like I said, let kids read. Reading is fantastic.
I don't
I'll always be a huge
proponent. The back of a cereal box, just like,
yeah, for sure. And I think we just embracing reading and sharing books like what you're doing, and that's just incredible.
Well, you're incredible. Okay. So, reading right now. What are you reading right now?
Right now I'm reading The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, and I'm taking my time, very delicious reading. But one book that stood out, because I was thinking some of my favorite books of the year so far, and I think that you would maybe enjoy Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. It's a YA, and it felt like, okay, it has nothing to do with the Goonies, but I'm sure you know that movie. But I remember it gave me that same sense of adventure. It's got such an adventurous spirit, and I could picture it as a movie, and it's just so thrilling, and a little romance and a little betrayal. So I think you would love that one. And I recently read The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokshi, and it was stunningly beautiful, almost gave me a toothache, because the prose is so indulgent, which is perfect for the story. It was so good. So I feel like I have so many books on my to be read list. Of course, I'm sure you have a bajillion that you want to read. And
there's so many amazing stories. It's so hard. I've never heard any of these books. I am so excited.
Oh, they're so good. And I have little wrap-ups for the month that I do. So they're down on my page. Oh, cool. But I think that
on your social media page, or okay, cool. So I will definitely be there. So everyone watching, go to Amanda's Instagram page, get all her book recommendations.
There's so many good ones. And I feel what a great problem to have. There's more books than I could read in my lifetime that are out all the time. And I have so many writing friends that are so talented. So sometimes I get sneak peeks at books that aren't published yet. And I'm just I feel like I know a secret that no one knows. And it's just incredible.
It's so fun. Oh, it's amazing. Well, what else do you want people to know about your wonderful book, and where they can get it? And if there's anything else you want people to know.
Well, it's available. I have a link in my bio, but it's available at major retailers, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and last I checked, it was at many libraries across the country, and readers can always request it at their library. I'll never be mad if someone requests my book at their library. I think that libraries are fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love to support them. And if it's not at your local indie, people can request that they purchase it. And I think, I don't know, I guess one of the things I love about this book is that I've seen it described in so many different genres. Like, I've seen it described as a mystery, I've seen it described as dark fantasy, as horror. Although I think the scare, like, it really depends on the reader's taste. Like, some major horror buffs are probably not going to be as scared, but then I've heard people tell me that it gave them nightmares. So it's
Yeah,
really
I
up
found
to
it
the reader.
scary.
Yeah, I had a friend who read it and she was like staring out the window at these dark woods and she's like, I could not sleep. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've seen like there's fairy tale elements. So I think I just love that there's so many bits of other stories that I love that are in it. And I'm just so grateful to have made my YA debut with this book that I'm so proud of. And I read it like 2 weeks ago. I reread it when I got my final copies, and I still just love it so much. And I'm so grateful for my whole team that I worked with and just everyone that helped me get to this point. And so grateful to talk to you about it today. And now I'm finally like not nervous, and we're gonna be done in a minute.
I know. Well, you are such a talent and such an incredible writer and a wonderful storyteller. I am so grateful, and I want to echo also what you said about having so like tapping into so many different genres. I feel like there's a little bit for everybody, and it's not like overpowering where it's only like specific, towards a certain reader. I think that everyone will really enjoy this. It's thriller, it's horror, but it's not. It's tame enough where you're not going to be too scared, but you'll be scared enough, I think. And it's also romance. It's also representative as well, which I feel like that's really important, especially in YA books.
Sure.
And love story, a little fairy tale, a sweet little Gilmore Girls-esque town too that's like so sweet and fun and timeless. And I really feel like you just checked all the boxes and did a fantastic job. So thank you so much for spending some time with us on your launch day. Everyone, please go pick up a copy of Starlings. I will make sure there's a link so far in my stories, and I'll add a link too in my bio as well. And then also head to Amanda's page too for all of the recommendations and book links as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen. This was a blast, and it just was an honor to chat. And like later today, I have to do laundry and like clean up after my dog and like stuff like that. So like it was just wonderful to get to break up my day and do something super special for my launch day. And yeah, I'm just glad to be here. So thank you again so much.
Thank you so much, and I'm so excited for all of the stories that you're going to put out in the world. I cannot wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.